Thanks a million, Marie. And I know people around me are looking for coffee and refreshments and all of that, so I'll try to make sure I can get to the side. Try not to keep you too long. I firstly just wanted to say thank you, Marie, for welcoming me here. I'm just delighted to be back here again. I've just been thinking while listening to the great presentations so far. ANSL has been around for a long time, but back in 2005 and 2006, a group of us came together to kind of re-energise it and get it kind of going in a slightly different format. There was Anne O'Sullivan, I can see you there, Anne and Erin, O'Mahony, Katrina Sharkey, of course, who'd done so much work, and Ava Hornung and myself at the time. And in April of 2006, we had our first annual seminar, quite a modest affair, and it just grew and grew from there. And I've stepped back for a good while from ANSL, but I've watched with just, great, being so impressed and great pride at what's happened, and this has become one of the standout occasions within the Library and Information Services as arena for people to attend. So it's really lovely to be here. Hey, that's a good clap. To just give you a bit of context about what I do and the role that I have. So I work in Maynooth University, leading the teaching, research and development team there. So the core functions of the team are delivering classes of various types. I'm going to speak about one aspect of that, our LIST programme, related to our information literacy framework. We also offer research supports that's really addressed to our research community of postgrads, researchers, academics, these days around the areas of open access, research data management, research visibility and such like. And complementing this, we've been developing and increasingly developing more online support tools and tutorials, and that's particularly important, yes, it is everywhere, but Maynooth has quite a diverse population, student population, between people as distance learners and also the kind of mix of non-traditional and access students that we have as well, for which whom this is important. I'll mention that in a moment. And then also just to say, because it's important for the context of what I'm talking about, we changed the model of how we provide our support from a subject-based model of support to a functional model, and we're in our first year of that. So that's been a big change, and it definitely influences what we've been doing. We focus on a couple of areas, one of which is academic engagement, so essentially customer relationship management with our academic colleagues. We would talk to them about issues like collection management, their needs, what they need from us, the services we're providing, we want to promote from them, and also really usefully we have a very good mechanism through that to getting feedback from them. That'll come up as well. Obviously we provide teaching and learning activities, research reports that I've mentioned, and then our final area is academic liaison, which again is coming back to creating specifically supports and teaching for the non-traditional students. In Maynooth we're one of the highest levels of non-traditional access students, over 20%, coming to 25%, and a lot of these students may have particular requirements that we're trying to find ways to address at the moment. Okay, so what I'll talk about now is what LIST programme is. We have spoken about it quite a lot over the years, so a lot of you might be familiar. Why did we develop it and how did it evolve? What were the changes we made and why did we make the changes? And then what happened? Did we fail? And I've noticed that my previous speakers have been about a little bit of failure and then, it did all go well afterwards. So mine is going to be about failure, and I don't have the answers. So I'm really interested in the panel discussion if we end up having time for that, or just to chat with you generally throughout the day. The rest of the title was about the lessons that we lived. We certainly did. And have we learned lessons? And that's the bit that we'll have to see. So briefly about LIST. LIST was established in 2004, so it's long established at this stage, and the purpose was to provide easy-to-access, point-of-need drop-in tutorials hosted within the library. And from the beginning, we had an emphasis on including the other support services within the university, so it was really a holistic set of tutorials. So that meant that over time it became very well established, very well known and recognised as a brand. Everyone knew about it. Also, because we had the partnership with our wider support units, the library is really a hub for all that's going on, a sort of sense of come to the library, you'll get information, not just in information literacy aspects, but maybe pastoral services or budgeting or planning your career and so on. And it would have been known and spoken about as a national exemplar for library instruction, so all sounds lovely. So why do we need to change? And a lot of these have been touched by my colleagues previously. In our own case, the change in curriculum was a particular driver to change it. So in the last number of years, Maynooth has brought out what it's now termed a Maynooth education. It was really a new undergraduate curriculum, which very much focused on critical skills and areas of becoming an independent learner, and that wider sense of life skills that our students need to attain, not just for the achievement of assignment and assessment and so on. And at the same time, we developed our information literacy framework, a standalone document influenced by other framework documents, but very much specific to ourselves and mapped back to that new curriculum and to the critical skills framework. So of course, the next step was for our teaching to start reflecting this IEL framework. As I mentioned, we made that change from a subject librarian to a functional model. And with that, it brought new opportunities in terms of we had new roles, but also we had to look carefully at our resources. We're a relatively small team of 7, and the areas that I've mentioned are very large. Even we've one person who works half-time on the whole academic engagement, for example. We've 2 teaching and learning librarians, and we have 1 librarian responsible for research support. So we had to be judicious about where our priorities lay and what resources we could allocate to them. Again, I've mentioned our growing and diverse student population with the changing information needs. Just very briefly to say, I think we've seen more and more, I mean, it's university a positive thing that university access has increased and that it's now the given that such a wide, such a high level of our students completing second level go to third level education. But in Maynooth, not I'm saying particular, but my experience in Maynooth is that students are coming in and often they don't have that basic level of information literacy skill. They haven't attained that. They don't sometimes fundamentally understand the concept of a library or how the provision of information works. And we're here talking about, you know, searching strategies and so on. We're streets ahead of where they're at. And I'll give you a really quick example. A student who I think had attended one of the classes we gave, she came in looking to speak to me directly. I think she must have just remembered my name. So I came out and it turned out she just needed to find a book on her reading list. She was doing English. And of course our desk staff could have helped her. But as I was there, I decided I would take her to the shelf because I could see she was particularly nervous. And as we walked up the stairs, it was on the 2nd floor of the library, she said, "Gosh, never thought I'd be going to the 2nd floor in first year." And, you know, that was quite sincerely meant. And I could give you 10 more anecdotes straight away. There's a real lack of understanding around the use of information. And if you think that that's where they're starting from, how do we expect students to be able to critically assess and evaluate information successfully? They start into their assessments very quickly once they start into college. We also created List Online, our online suite of tutorials that matched in an online capacity what we'd been doing face-to-face. So that allowed us to consider what we want to do in the face-to-face environment. And a big driver, again, was back to looking at the resources that we have and how we manage them effectively. There's a lot we knew we weren't doing. So we were delivering lists very enthusiastically and very successfully for a long period of time. But that meant we didn't have the resources to be addressing how were we scaffolding our learning, as was mentioned earlier. We knew we got a lot of first years, but we got to very few second years. We didn't give equal attention across faculties and so on. And then there were new areas we wanted to address. And then we had to look at the attendance. We give a lot of lists sessions, and the numbers were beginning definitely to fall. And so we were getting down. Somebody said about when nobody turns up. Somebody on Twitter just mentioned Laura. I think if nobody turns up, I actually think if 1 or 2 people turned up, it's even worse because you are duty bound to do something with them, but you can't deliver the session you're planning to, and it's a really wasteful sense of your time and not the purpose of what the sessions were about. So what did we do? We went in semester 1, what we did was over the last 3 semesters, so if we take the current semester we're in, then the last semester, semester 1 of the current academic year, and then the previous semester, we looked at each stage about what we were doing with the LIST programme and what we might change. But I'll just focus on this academic year. Prior to the beginning of the first semester, we decided, okay, we'll take a 2-strand approach. We'll have the first couple of weeks be very much focused on welcoming the students and orientating them within the library context, within university as a whole. Then we'll move on to a more learning-based structure. So the starting out sessions were introductory and there were welcoming sessions. They were to explain university structure and where the library fits in, and very core skills around finding items on your reading list, basic information on referencing and how to do basic searching. Later on, and tied in, the whole thing was driven by their point of need, tied into we tied into their assessments, and when they had their assessments, we went into greater depth and engaged with IL skills. So they'd be practical workshop-based approach, some slightly longer sessions, and again, very much targeted at their point of need. That was semester 1. I'll tell you how that went in a moment. Semester 2 is always less attended. Thanks, Marie. Always less attended anyway, I mean, that initial requirement for information isn't still there. So we reduced the number of sessions and the choices of sessions, and based on our feedback, we did focus more on how we can help you to do better in the assignments. We had tried to address that Maynooth education approach by not just giving them the skills, but emphasising that it had wider applicability. And I think some of the previous speakers touched on this. They just weren't interested. They wanted to know for the here and now. They want to know what they can get for their assessments. So we took that on board, and we changed around semester 2, which is where we're at now. And we did increase the number of referencing sessions. We also were really, really proactive in the promotion that we engaged in. I'll come back to that. We made sure that we engaged with the academic staff, that we got feedback for them, that we checked, are these the skills you think your students need to be doing? We made sure they pushed that information out at the start of semester and got it out to students that this will help you do better if you go to these sessions. Now, this doesn't really help what I'm trying to tell you because there's a couple of variables, but just to give you a bit of a graphic, this is the overall where we're at with attendance. Now, I know we can look from that. I've just given you the, if you probably can't see too clearly at the back, I'm sure, but the internal ones, the ones we deliver from the library ourselves, and the external are other support units. So if you look, it does look like there's an increase in 2016-17. So there's an overall increase in numbers, but we were offering a lot more sessions. So if you broke them down about attendance by session, we still have the same problem. And then you can certainly see at least that drop off in the current academic year. So what did happen? Quite simply, our numbers are just hitting the ground. They are way, way down. Now, still in saying that, I was interested to see Chris's statistics that he provided, because when I look at the actual figures that we have, we're talking probably overall attendances still hitting about between 500 and 600 people who turn up, which for a moderately sized university is probably not a bad figure. But it's just that when they're turning up, they're not engaging with what we're delivering to them, and the numbers per session, you know, aren't working out to make it a useful use of our time. Students didn't want to know that wider sense of thing, that buying into the wider education. And what in fact they did come up with all the time, what we got from students is we are completely overwhelmed. And I know that from going into speaking to the classes and teaching in the class context. They hear about assessment from week 1. In the School of Business, they start with their continuous assessments that first Friday of the first week that they've come in. So they're your students who, you know, a couple of months ago were in a highly structured school environment with no freedom of choice, and they're now sitting in a university lecture hall, and week 1 they're being assessed by Friday, and that counts. The students felt that they weren't sure of what was expected of them, and they were just unwilling to engage and show independent learning. So the students who did come, in case you think, well, you've completely got it wrong, the feedback from the students who came was, yeah, this is great. They came back to us again. They looked for further help. And we had confirmed this, if you remember, with our academic colleagues. So we know what we're delivering, the content is correct and the pitch is correct, but the population that we have in front of us, that's not what they want. Typically what they did want was solve our problems that we have right now, my particular problem with my essay, and so on. So, and I think because of that, we couldn't get them to actually come to the sessions, even though, you know, we're really putting it out that this will help with the assignments. So what did we do? After the first semester, we went back and engaged with the academics. As I said, we had that positive feedback. We developed resources for academics to promote and to embed it into our virtual learning environment, Moodle. We wanted to be sure that, are we really reaching people? We had previously really confined our promotion to the library, and we really worked against this. We used student ambassadors to promote directly to students, and on the basis that they might listen to them instead of the old people like ourselves. And the response from student ambassadors is that's exactly true. They did listen, they were very interested, but they still didn't come. Similarly, Students' Union got onto them, great, engaged with the education officer there, ditto. And we really upped our promotion. We had moved away from physical promotion to online promotion, and we moved back into the physical environment with posters, which large screens with handouts, which we pushed every way we could go. So have we failed? I mean, first of all, I'd say the changes we made haven't worked. So that is a failure. We spent a lot of time before we started this academic year really thinking this through. And there's a sense when you've put that kind of work into it that you should see some outcomes. So it does feel like a failure. It's a failure certainly in terms of we're not getting the result that we want. And even when we stopped at Christmas and said, okay, this is what we'll do for semester 2, it's been even worse. I mean, it's 1s and 2s turning up to the sessions. Occasionally a few more, maybe for the referencing one, but that's what we're talking about. There is a sense of personal deflation around that, as I mentioned, and it's, I think that needs to be taken cognizance of. The also thing, the way it has affected us as well, is that there's a team dynamics effect. We are a new team trying to find our way within a functional model, and it's our first year, it's a pilot year. We don't know quite how. There's always a sense of loss when you move from a very well-established method of support. So, of course, this is an effect. This was supposed to be one of our initiatives to kick off what we're doing. So from a team dynamics point of view. And it can kind of affect your motivation. We certainly have said to each other, we've sat down and done this 3 times over. What else can we do? So there is that feeling about what other bright ideas could there be out there. I know I'm short on time, so I'll just kind of go through it. So where are we at now? So the first thing I would say, that I'm probably pushing it out here, that going, it is okay to fail. And it's nearly important to recognise that the failure is going to happen. And we need to be able to be brave enough to say it is a failure in the sense of it not reaching its time. Oh God, I'm getting a stop sign. What do I just want to finish on my last bit? What I think helps us here is that within Maynooth, we are very lucky to be a part of an organisational culture of change. There wasn't someone going, oh, it didn't work, did it not? There's no sense of that. Change is possible, and the wider management team supports that. Where we're going to, because I know I need to stop, where we are going to is recognising that the problem I think we've experienced is not a problem with the library or our content or what we're doing. There could be elements, I suppose, but not chiefly. It's an institution-wide problem. In fact, it's probably a problem with third-level education. And so where we're moving to, and these slides I'm sure will be shared later, but what we're doing now is moving back out to engage with the wider institution in terms of what we do next. For example, a change in our orientation programme. We're also trying to say if that's what they want in terms of specific support. We've started introducing clinics, and we're going to do more of those, hopefully. And obviously we'll engage with students. I think that's me. So that's finished. Thank you very much for your attention.